Your convention meets at a pivotal moment, not only for the working class of Canada and Quebec, but for workers in the United States and around the world. In country after country, the forces of right-wing reaction are growing, and the capitalist offensive is accelerating. In Canada, the ruling class agenda is being advanced by a Liberal government, but as your analysis shows, the shift toward the right continues, regardless of Prime Minister Carney's rhetoric about independence or a different relationship with the United States. In the US, the danger is even sharper. The administration of President Donald Trump is racing toward fascism, trampling on what remains of bourgeois democracy, which was already severely compromised by big business domination and white supremacy. The first year of Trump's second term has seen mass firings of public sector workers and the cancellation of their collective bargaining rights, mass deportations, and a reign of anti-immigrant terror as ICE agents raid homes, workplaces, schools, and churches. Military occupations of several cities, including Washington, Los Angeles, and others. Intensified attacks on Black, Latino, Indigenous, and other racialized communities. Diversity and inclusion policies have been eliminated. School curricula are being rewritten to whitewash slavery and elite people's resistance movements. Women's access to reproductive health care is even more severely curtailed than it already was. Electoral maps are being redrawn to lock in MAGA rule next year in the midterm elections and in 2028. LGBTQ people, especially trans people, are being targeted for erasure. Restrictions on protest have multiplied, especially against those who oppose US backing for Israel's genocidal war in Gaza. Food stamps and health care for the poor have been held hostage in fights over the federal budget. Environmental regulations have been gutted. Anti-communism has returned as the central theme of far-right propaganda and attacks on labor. And comrades, this list could go on. Politically, Trump's regime marks a clear descent toward fascism. And in his second term, he's gone even further than he did when he took power in 2017. Through his appointments, the capitalist class now has direct personal control over many of the economic levers of the state, and it's using them to enrich itself at the expense of working people. It's truly state monopoly capitalism on steroids. The Trump government reflects the interests of particular sectors of capital: high tech, crypto speculators, fossil fuels, the military-industrial complex, segments of finance and pharmaceuticals, and small capital, such as regional manufacturers, oil and gas producers. The most reactionary and violence-prone capitalists now occupy the seats of power. This danger is compounded by the escalating trade war that Trump has launched against the world, but especially against China. Some may look at his on-again, off-again tariff policies and just conclude that this is chaos, it's unplanned. But in reality, in fact, they reflect a strategic shift by certain sections of the US capitalist class. Like the capitalists of the early 20th century, they're prepared to abandon global free trade and a lot of its institutions in exchange for a sealed economic sphere, an imperial bloc where monopoly power will be guaranteed. They believe that partitioning the world, just as Lenin analyzed, is the only way to maintain US dominance at a time when China, Russia, and the broader BRICS grouping of nations are rising. This drive to reassemble a US-controlled bloc also goes a long way toward explaining Trump's hostility toward Canada, his threats of annexation, punishing tariffs, and economic coercion. Workers in Canada, of course, as you've been discussing, are already paying the price through layoffs, a growing militarization of the economy, and a homegrown corporate offensive being carried out under the false banners of sovereignty and independence. But US workers gain nothing either. Unemployment continues to rise as profits soar for the high-tech AI firms, for the cryptocurrency traders, and the fossil fuel exploiters. Meanwhile, inflation, whether it's for groceries, for rent, or gasoline, continues to erode working-class living standards. And so where is the political opposition to all of this? Well, you look to Washington, and you see the national leadership of the Democratic Party remains in disarray. Recent splits in their ranks handed Trump a victory in the government shutdown battle, a victory that's going to strip millions of Americans of their health care. As the second party of imperialism, the Democrats also rubber stamp too much of Trump's foreign policy, even if they might criticize parts of it with their words at times. Most dangerous in this regard right now, of course, is the looming war that's being prepared against Venezuela, which you've all been devoting a lot of attention to discussing. It's no wonder, then, that the number of people in the US who identify as political independents is now larger than the combined numbers of those who say they support either of the two major parties. Neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party addresses the root causes of working-class suffering, and neither offers real solutions. And that's why we see the resistance growing. In the 2025 elections, many cities and states rejected MAGA candidates, and instead they embraced progressive ones. Of course, the most notable one being the self-declared socialist Zoran Mamdani in New York City. Millions have participated in the historic No King's Day protests and in the March on Wall Street. In the labor movement, a new cohort of militant leaders has emerged. The United Auto Workers stand-up strike, organizing breakthroughs at Amazon warehouses, and the youth-led Starbucks strike wave, all of these show a renewed fight back. But the labor movement's overall response to Trump's attacks on 1.3 million federal workers, for instance, remains too slow. It's insufficiently coordinated. The coalition of black trade unionists is calling for a national mobilization to protect workers' rights, but the uptake remains very uneven so far. Taken together, all of these developments show that there is a spirit of resistance among the people in the US, but it's a spirit that needs more organization, more coherence, and more direction. There's a clear need for greater independent political action by the working class, and the CPUSA is throwing itself into that effort, with promising results. First, the party's influence in labor continues to grow. CPUSA members are playing leading roles in struggles like Amazon and Starbucks organizing, in immigrant defense networks, and in the expanding boycott movements against those corporations that have openly aligned themselves with the MAGA agenda, most notably Target. Second, for the first time in many years, the CPUSA is running candidates of its own for public office. Coalition politics remain the lifeblood of our party and of our political activity, and in this regard, the work has paid off this year. 3 CPUSA members were elected to local office. Several others, even though they didn't win, they scored strong vote totals and are preparing to run again next time. Because they were grounded in their communities and in their class, anti-communist attacks on these candidates largely fell flat. This growing public profile for the party has drawn the attention of the media and of the far right. Joe Sims, one of our national co-chairs, recently appeared on The Daily Show, a nightly comedy news program which has better ratings and better credibility among the public than the actual news media. Joe appeared there speaking before millions. Millions more have watched it on YouTube afterward, and it's resulting in a lot of interest in the party. But MAGA figures like Ted Cruz and Mike Johnson, well, they've responded with attempts to launch anti-CPUSA crusades. But again, they've met with very little support. Third, party membership continues its steady rise. Our ranks have grown by 11% since November 2024, with especially strong growth among the youth. Discussions are underway right now about reestablishing a nationwide Young Communist League USA at the earliest practical moment. And efforts are already in progress to revive the CPUSA's theoretical journal, Political Affairs. Comrades have outlined some of the dangers posed by US capitalism and shared some of the ways that we're fighting back inside the empire. But we also remember that one of the great treasures of our world communist movement is its internationalism. The ties between our two parties go back to our earliest years, when both parties were born amidst the revolutionary and labor upsurge that followed the October Revolution. For more than a century, the communist parties of Canada and the United States have struggled side by side, and today, together, we again face a sharpening crisis of capitalism and imperialism. In recent years, our bond has deepened even more through your participation in the CPUSA's international conferences, your attendance at our national convention, meetings between members of our two parties in places like Cuba, Cyprus, and at other events, and through the trilateral forum that we hosted together with the Popular Socialist Party of Mexico earlier this year to analyze the Trump trade war. Next year, the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement will be up for renegotiation. We hope that our parties, perhaps through our press outlets, People's Voice and People's World, can sponsor more cross-border discussions to raise working class awareness about the dangers of this corporate-dominated free trade pact. That's only one possible avenue for joint action, and I'm sure together we can find many more. So I will close by saying thank you for welcoming us here to Montreal. We wish you every success in your deliberations this weekend, and we're confident that your party and the working class in Canada and Quebec will record new advances in the period ahead. Long live the Communist Party of Canada, and long live working class internationalism.